You ever wonder what your business sounds like when you're not in the room? That question hit Malcolm Graves harder than any boardroom presentation or profit report ever did. As he sat in his aging Nissan Altima, engine off, windshield dusty from Georgia pollen, he stared across the street at his pride and joy. Graveside Grub, a soul food diner, once buzzing with laughter, gospel music, and the smell of biscuits and burnt sugar. Now, now it felt quieter. The neon sign still flickered in its familiar glow, teal and orange letters spelling out a name that meant more to him than anything. Graveside Grub. It wasn't just a business. It was a tribute, a living, breathing altar to his grandmother, Ruthie Graves, the woman who raised him on fried green tomatoes and tenacity. Her kitchen, with one working burner and walls that peeled in the summer heat, was where he learned everything about food and even more about people. She used to say, "If the walls stop singing, baby, it means the soul is gone." And Malcolm hadn't heard the walls sing in months. It started small. A few old-timers stopped showing up. A loyal customer left a cryptic Yelp review. The food's still fire, but something's changed. A supplier mentioned that one of the new hires was rude on delivery. Then a friend, someone Malcolm trusted, pulled him aside and said, "Man, I don't know how to tell you this, but your place doesn't feel like your place anymore." So Malcolm did what most owners would never dare. He disguised himself, not in some fake mustache, hidden camera TV way. No, he just blended in. Old jeans, faded hoodie, busted sneakers, and a worn Braves cap pulled low. No one would recognize him this way. Not his cooks, not his servers, not even the managers he paid every 2 weeks. At 12:43 p.m., he walked through the door like any regular off the street. The smell hit him first. Warm, slow-smoked brisket, sweet honey cornbread, the tangy twang of house-made barbecue sauce. It smelled like home. It smelled like Ruthie. But it didn't feel like her. The energy was off. Not wrong, just colder, quieter. No one greeted him. No, "Hey, welcome in." No, "How can I help you today?" Even the music playing over the speakers, once upbeat funk and soul, was now some generic pop country radio. He looked around. Only one server visible, rushing between tables. A mother with 2 kids waved awkwardly, trying to get her attention. No one noticed. At the register stood Kelsey, scrolling her phone with nails long enough to double as utensils. Her gum cracked like a firecracker every few seconds. Next to her, Todd, early 20s, wiry, leaning against the counter like the floor offended him, half an earbud hanging out. "Next," Kelsey said flatly, eyes still glued to her screen. Malcolm stepped forward. Yeah, can I get the pulled pork sandwich with baked beans?" She tapped at the screen without looking up. "That it?" "Yeah, thanks." "No name?" "No." She shrugged. "Cash or card?" "Cash." He handed her a 10, got a receipt, and stepped aside. He didn't expect warmth, but he didn't expect ice either. Then it happened. Todd chuckled, slipping his phone into his apron. He leaned toward Kelsey and said, "Just loud enough. You see that guy? Bet he walked in from that shelter on Maple. You can always tell. Eyes always darting, holding their breath like we gonna feed him for free." Kelsey snorted, not even whispering. Betty said not to bother giving those types refills. They never tip anyway. All they do is bring the place down. Ever since the owner started hiring from that second chance program, this place has gone straight to hell. Malcolm felt his chest tighten. Word is the owner's some big shot black dude who doesn't even show up, probably on a beach somewhere sipping green juice. "Right?" Kelsey scoffed. "Boss man goes AWOL and we're the ones dealing with the freak parade." Todd laughed. "You think he even knows who works here?" That was the line. Not the insult, not the ignorance. It was the truth buried in it. Because they were right, in part. Malcolm hadn't been around. Not really. Zoom meetings, inventory sheets, weekly check-ins with the GM. But he hadn't walked the floor, hadn't broken bread with his staff in months. He'd built the place from nothing, took a $10,000 loan from his college roommate, fried the first 100 catfish fillets himself, slept on the prep table more nights than he'd admit. He'd pulled this business from his own sweat and grief. And now, two cashiers who wore his name on their aprons didn't just not recognize him. They didn't care. That hurt more than rage, more than betrayal. It was grief. Malcolm turned back to the register. Actually, cancel that order. Kelsey barely glanced up. You sure? Yeah, he said flatly. Lost my appetite. Then he walked out. But he didn't leave. He got back into his car, sat behind the wheel, and stared straight ahead for a long time. His fingers tapped lightly against the steering wheel, not from nerves, from restraint. The kind of restraint it takes not to shout, not to explode, not to walk back in and fire them both on the spot. Instead, he whispered to himself, "What did I stop watering?" His grandmother once told him. You can't plant something and expect it to grow without tending to it. Doesn't matter how rich the soil is, baby. Neglect will kill anything. After 15 minutes of silence, he turned the key in the ignition, but not to leave. He drove around back. No cameras back there. Just the old steel door and a cracked kitchen window above it. He parked quietly, rolled down his window and listened. From inside, he heard laughter. Not Kelsey's, not Todd's. Deep, genuine belly laughter. Big Nate, his oldest cook. Been with him since day one. A bear of a man with a voice like gravel and hands like boulders. Malcolm knew that laugh anywhere. Then came a voice. Todd again. You ever even met the guy who owns this place? Another pause, then. He started this with $200 and a smoker that barely lit, Nate said, his tone hardening. So maybe y'all should watch your mouths. This ain't just a job for some of us. This was salvation. Silence followed. Malcolm smiled, not because it was funny, but because someone still remembered. Someone still felt it. He leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would return, not as the invisible boss in the hoodie, but as the man who built this house. And he wouldn't ask for respect. He'd demand it, not with force, but with truth. Because the soul of Graveside Grub wasn't gone. It was just buried, and tomorrow he'd start digging it out. The next morning, Malcolm Graves arrived at Graveside Grub before the sun even knew where it was. The street was empty, save for a city bus in the distance and the blinking traffic light that didn't yet have cars to guide. He stepped out of his car slowly, holding a thermos of black coffee and a folder tucked under one arm. He looked at the sign glowing faintly above the door. The neon still buzzed, orange and teal, but one letter in Grub flickered, like it couldn't decide whether it still belonged. Kind of like him. By 8:47 a.m., the staff began to arrive, most of them on autopilot. Big Nate was first, unlocking the side entrance with the key Malcolm had given him 3 years ago. His posture was straight, focused. Dressed in his usual denim apron and signature gray beanie, Charisse, the line cook Malcolm had personally recruited from a culinary school scholarship program, followed soon after. She looked tired but moved with purpose. Then came the others. Tiana, one of the longtime servers with a warm face and quick hands. Luis and Devin, the dishwashing duo who rarely spoke, but were always in sync. And finally, Todd, bouncing one earbud in and out, scrolling his phone with that detached look of someone who didn't yet realize he was being watched. Kelsey arrived last, late, sipping a neon green iced drink and laughing at something on her screen. She didn't look up as she entered. Malcolm sat in the car for one more minute. No hoodie today, no disguise, just jeans, clean boots, and a charcoal pea coat his grandmother had given him when he signed the lease on the building. 9:02 a.m., time to reclaim the room. He stepped inside. The door creaked in that familiar way. The same creak Ruthie used to say was, like the house saying good morning. The moment he entered, the noise shifted. Charisse was the first to spot him. Her brow furrowed. Then Nate looked up, when his eyes locked with Malcolm's. He gave the smallest nod. Respect. Recognition. Everyone else slowly turned toward him. Kelsey froze. Todd stood completely still, like a squirrel caught on a highway. Tiana dropped her phone. Devin stopped stacking plates. No one said a word. Malcolm took his time walking to the center of the dining area, where tables were half set and the chairs hadn't all been flipped down yet. He placed the folder gently on the counter. Then he turned around. I won't keep you long, he said, voice low but commanding. But I need you to listen. Not hear. Listen. A silence settled over the room. Not awkward. Heavy. This place, Graveside Grub, isn't just a diner. And it damn sure ain't just a paycheck. He paused. It's named after my grandmother, Ruthie Graves, the woman who raised me when my own parents left, who made cornbread in a broken oven and fed our whole street with 2 sweet potatoes and a prayer. She taught me that food is a form of love, that work is a form of worship, and that if a place doesn't feel like family, it isn't worth keeping open. He looked at every face. Yesterday I walked in, not as the boss, just as a man wanting lunch. And I stood right there. He pointed to the spot near the register. And I listened to 2 of my employees mock a stranger, call him a vagrant, laugh at his presence, question why we hire from second chance programs, criticize me for not showing up. Malcolm turned to Todd and Kelsey. He didn't raise his voice, didn't even frown. I heard every word. Todd shifted his weight. Kelsey stared at the floor. I could have yelled. I could have fired people on the spot. And to be honest, I wanted to. But then I remembered what this place is supposed to be about. He pointed to Big Nate. This man, Big Nate, you wouldn't be here without him. He vouched for dozens of people who needed a shot. He built this kitchen with me. Burns, cuts, and all. And last night, when I stood outside, I heard him defend the soul of this diner when no one else would. Nate lowered his eyes. Malcolm continued. Some of you came in for work, but some of us came here to build something sacred. And if you don't believe in that, if you don't want to be a part of that, then I need you to leave. A beat. No one moved. He opened the folder and pulled out 2 stacks of paper. One stack is your recommitment form. If you want to be here, not just work here, but be a part of this, you sign it. You show up different, with respect, with intention. He lifted the other stack. The second is a clean exit form. You finish today's shift, collect 2 weeks severance, no hard feelings, no gossip, no shame. But you leave with dignity, because I won't let anyone stay here just to clock in and poison the air. Another pause, then he added, you don't have to decide right now, but by close of business today, I need a choice. The room was still. Then Cherise spoke. I'm staying. Her voice cracked a little, but she stood tall. This place is the only place I felt seen. I lost 3 jobs before this because nobody gave me a shot. You did. So, yeah, I'm staying. Malcolm nodded. Nate stepped forward. You already know where I stand. More nods, one by one. Tiana, Luis, Devin. Even the dishwasher, who rarely spoke, raised a hand slowly. Kelsey stayed quiet. So did Todd. But the moment had shifted. After the meeting, the staff slowly dispersed to start their shifts. Malcolm didn't micromanage. He walked the room, shook hands, checked the prep list, wiped down a counter with Cherise and made a joke about her being the only cook who burned rice and blamed the spoon. They laughed. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Around noon, the door opened. A young man stepped in, maybe 19. Nervous posture, hoodie too big for his frame. He stood near the entrance, clearly unsure where to go. Kelsey looked at him, then away, then slowly. Back again. She straightened her shoulders. Hi there, she said, softer than anyone expected. What can I get started for you? The kid flinched at first, then approached. Catfish combo, but can I get greens instead of fries? Of course, she said. Anything to drink? He shook his head. She typed it in, slid him a receipt. You're good. Food will be up in 10. The kid stepped to the side, clutching his paper like a lifeline. Malcolm watched from the coffee station. Then he walked up to Kelsey. You know who that is? He asked quietly. She blinked. Number should I? That's Isaiah Penn. He's part of the shelter's work-study program. First one in his family to hold a steady job. Been clean for 8 months. Her face changed, just a flicker. Guilt, understanding, maybe both. He looked so nervous, she whispered. He was, Malcolm said, because the world has made him feel like he doesn't belong. She swallowed. I'll do better. she said quietly. He nodded. Not to me. Do it for the next 10 Isaiahs who walk through that door. At the end of the shift, Malcolm stood outside. The sun had set, leaving only the glow of the neon sign, still flickering on that one stubborn letter. The building was quiet, but it felt louder than it had in weeks. More alive. Tomorrow decisions would be made. Some might leave, but some would stay and become the soul he almost lost. The sun rose the next day with a different kind of light. Not brighter, not softer, just earned. Inside Graveside Grub, the air was thick with the smell of baking biscuits and hot coffee, but the usual weight of routine was missing. Something had shifted. The team was quieter that morning, but not with tension, with reflection. At 7 a.m. sharp, Malcolm Graves stood at the edge of the dining room, folder still in hand, watching the people who had built his dream start their shift with a new kind of posture. Less going through the motions, more present, eyes made contact. Good mornings were sincere, and laughter, small but real, began to return. By 10 a.m., the first signed form slid across the counter. Charisse. Her signature was sharp, clean, determined. I'm here, she said. Not just for a paycheck, for all of it. Then Big Nate added his form, folded once, like he had nothing more to prove. One by one, the stack grew. By lunchtime, it was nearly complete, except two. Todd and Kelsey. They hadn't said much since the meeting. Todd avoided eye contact. Kelsey had been unusually quiet, occasionally biting the inside of her cheek, glancing toward the counter like the folder might bite back. At 4:15 p.m., just before closing, Malcolm sat in his usual booth by the window. The booth his grandmother used to sit in during soft openings, correcting the salt-to-pepper ratio in the collard greens like a hawk. A place that felt sacred. Kelsey approached, her hands tight around a folded form. I filled it out, she said, voice low, but I think I need to go. Malcolm looked up, not surprised, not angry. Why? She sighed. Because this place deserves people who see it the way you do. And I didn't, not until recently. But I've been working like this is just some side hustle, and that's not what it deserves. He nodded slowly. You sure? I am. I'm not bitter. I'm not quitting angry. I just know I'm not the right fit anymore. Malcolm stood. Thank you for saying that. It matters. Kelsey smiled faintly and placed her apron neatly on the booth. Tell Charisse I'll miss her sass, she said with a weak chuckle, and walked out without looking back. At 5:35 p.m., Todd finally approached. He didn't have the form. He just stood there for a moment. I've been stupid, he said, loud, disrespectful. Thought I was being funny or chill. Didn't even realize I was breaking something sacred. Malcolm stayed quiet. Todd went on. I don't want to go, not because I'm scared to lose the job, but because I finally see it now. I've never worked in a place where the owner stood in the fire with us like this. Malcolm nodded once. If you stay, Todd, you don't get to hide behind jokes anymore. I won't, he said. I'll earn it, day by day. Good, Malcolm replied, because this house ain't built on charm, it's built on care. By the end of the night, the stack of signed commitments sat on the counter like a quiet monument. All but one, Kelsey's goodbye form. Signed, but never crumpled. Malcolm didn't throw it away. He kept it, not out of sentiment, out of respect. The days that followed were quiet revolutions. No fireworks, no sweeping speeches, just habits changing, behaviors softening, people choosing grace over gossip. When Isaiah returned, now working part-time at a car wash down the block, he was greeted like family. He ordered the same catfish combo, and this time Todd delivered it with a smile and a refill he hadn't even asked for. Charisse started a staff meal tradition every Friday. The whole team sat and ate together at 4:30, no phones, no business talk, just food, just each other. Big Nate started mentoring a new dishwasher named Jalen, who was fresh out of juvie and full of nerves. Nate didn't say much, just taught the boy how to hold a knife like it meant something. And Malcolm? He came in twice a week, at least, sometimes to check inventory, sometimes just to sit by the window and scribble in a notebook. But mostly to listen, to smell the cornbread, to hear the walls sing again. And they did. One Thursday afternoon, Just as the dinner rush was trickling in, a woman in her 60s walked in. Floral dress, soft eyes. She glanced around like she wasn't sure she belonged. Tiana greeted her, sat her near the back. When her meal was done, she approached the counter and asked softly, "Can I speak to the owner?" Malcolm stepped forward. The woman smiled. "I've been coming here since the doors opened," she said. "I almost stopped because something had changed. But this week, it felt like your grandmother again." She pulled out a folded slip of paper and handed it to him. It read, "Thought I'd lost this place, but today it felt like Ruthie was in the room. Whoever she was, I hope she knows her garden is blooming again." Malcolm's throat tightened. He folded the note and placed it in the breast pocket of his coat. Not for keepsake, for grounding. That night he stood outside, leaning against the brick wall under the flickering neon sign. The G in grub was still acting up, one corner dimmer than the rest. He could have fixed it, but he chose not to, because imperfection told a better story. It reminded him that light could still come through cracks, that broken didn't mean gone, that if you water the garden it might still grow. He whispered to the sky, "We're still watering, Grandma." Then he smiled and walked back inside. Culture doesn't live in mission statements. It lives in the quiet decisions made when no one is watching. This wasn't a story about a sandwich. It was a story about showing up, about remembering that respect must be nurtured, not demanded, and that when the walls stop singing, maybe it's time to listen, not leave.